Well, it's Christmas Eve, and that means it's a training day. So today I threw in a little speed work before heading out the dash. Still trying to get my head around my 8th 6-day starting up on Monday. Well, it's Christmas Eve morning, 4:06 a.m. Nice and chilly out here on Nightfall on Elm. Doing a warm-up, 20-minute warm-up, and then just doing some quick 4 times 2 minutes minute recovery. So I'm part of my winter conditioning, slowly putting in a little bit of speed work. Not speed work, but basically just some leg turnover. And was talking about and thinking about expectations. And of course, expectations, as I was talking yesterday in a podcast, Des Linden saying how, 219 should just be the expectation for women. And, sub 209 should be for the men. And expectations really do work. You've been watching that Prep Cal track thing on Newberry Park. Sorry, it's cold out here. It's in the high 30s. The Sean guy, they always start off expectations. They're talking about the whole 2019 cross-country season, Newberry Park, Great Oak, and both those coaches have high expectations. You have to wonder, how do they constantly win? I mean, there's big schools. Everyone has most the same talent. In fact, I used to always, when I was coaching high school, I would say, everybody, if you've got good expectations and have a good program, you can have successful teams year after year. And especially here in town, we all just kind of seem to sit around and wait for great talent to show up. And that's not going to be the case. Now, if you get a great program like Great Oak and Newberry Park, I'm sure talent will start coming because you've set up such great expectations. But in the show, it always starts off with the coach from Newberry Park, Sean Brosen, saying, 420 is just not that fast, 420 for the mile. And, he believes that, and this year, last year they won the Nike National Championship. Well, this year, they went out and ran this 5K a couple weeks ago, and they had the entire team under 15 minutes. And yesterday I was talking about how a couple of the guys who ran 209, sub 209 yesterday, sub 210, they were 1430 guys in college. And, he's got sophomores and juniors crushing that. And that's after he had the great talent, Nico Young, last year. So expectations are important. You just set the bar and say, this is what we're going to meet. Up the street, I have McFarland High School, the won 9 state championships until they got screwed, and now we're in Division 1. They used to be in Division 4. It's by student body size, except my stupid section rewards you by your success by moving you up. So McFarland has 700, 800 kids now to compete against schools with 3,000 or 4,000. But one of the things I always say is expectations in McFarland are, you're going to go to our Woodward Park and you're going to break 17 on the 5K course. And so their entire team, they'll have 7 guys every year breaking 17 on that course. And when I was coaching Bakersfield High from 2006 to 2009, we had 1. And our school has 2,000 kids. We were working on it, but then also what it is the whole city of Bakersfield might have a handful of kids. We wouldn't have 7 kids in Bakersfield. Why? It was expectations. They had these high expectations. They put in the work. Plus, the community had expectations. You knew your uncle, your brother, your dad broke 17, so you went and broke 17. I used to joke that they would come home and they go, "How did you do?" And if you said 17:10, you didn't get dinner. So, anyways, that's just my thoughts on expectations. Of course, expectations can mess with you. I'm upcoming 6 days in the home. I've got an expectation of one kind of performance, and then sometimes that can be definitely crippling if you let it go the wrong way. And that's why I'm working on it and talking about it, and also going to hopefully stay in the present and just appreciate the fact that I can do what I'm doing. And so many people can't do it for physical reasons, mental reasons, mental's my issue, or financial reasons. They just can't afford to go off and walk around in circles for 6 days. Now, when I speak of expectations, they got to be realistic expectations based on, previous performances, what you're doing in training and whatnot. And for a perfect example is when I had my Bakersfield Distance Project going full tilt, We went and ran a lot of marathons, and a bunch of my faster athletes were trying to get in the Boston Marathon, of course, with those pretty tough qualifying marks. And I remember one time going to Surf City, and what it is you have community standards or community expectations, just what is expected. Like I said in McFarland, if you're a young man, you're expected to train hard, work hard, and break 17 on the Woodward course. Well, we were at Surf City Marathon down in Huntington Beach a few years ago, and we were taking the bus shuttle to the starting line, and it's cold and dark, 5 in the morning, and I'm sitting there with a couple of my athletes, and then there were some people sitting across from us who were from the Orange County area, Southern California, and they're talking. You can hear them talking about last year's Boston or this year's Boston, and I looked at how, when we got off the bus, I said, "You saw those people sitting next to us?" They're like, "Yeah, what were they talking about?" "Oh, they're talking about Boston Marathon and this, that, and the other thing." And I said, "Yeah, and do they look any different than you?" "No, not really. They weren't superheroes or anything." And I said, "Yeah, see, where they live, Southern California, the expectation, if you're a runner, a decent runner, I'm never going to Boston because I'm too big, too old, and too slow. But if you're a decent runner, the expectation is you qualify and you run Boston someday." And said, our community's expectations, Bakersfield, are so low that if you tell someone you run, people say, "Why?" And if you tell them you run a marathon, you get the old, "Oh, I don't even like to drive that far," or "Oh gosh, you're crazy." Here it's like, "Oh my gosh." And but if you're in Southern California, the question will be, "Hey, have you run Boston? Hey, what's your time?" And so, like I said, the community brings up those expectations, and that's what you see at those high schools, Great Oak, Newbury Park. Kids grow up in the community and know what the expectations are of them, and then they meet those expectations. Nice quick morning. Did my 4 times 2 minutes quick, 1 minute recovery, then came home, and it's really cold. It's under 40 here, but routine is it's a day divided by 3, December 24th, Christmas Eve, so it's time to do my kettlebell swings, the Pavel Simple and Sinister 100 swings. Try and do it under 5 minutes. I started off with 10 pounds, even though Pavel himself said you should use a 35-pound bell, a normal man 35-pound bell. Well, I bought one of those, still can't use it, but today I actually did 100 swings with the 30-pound bell and did it in 4:45. So, and if I do that 2 more times, I always try and do at least 3 in a row with that weight. And if I can do that, then I will become a normal man with the 35-pound bell. Mainly I talk about endurance and exercise in this videos and podcasts, but having expectations also works obviously in business and in school. Like with my children, I had expectations of them going to college, since I did and my wife did, but my parents didn't. But our expectations were measured on the fact that I didn't expect my kids, like so many people today, to get straight A's. I basically told my kids that school is like grad school. B's are better. You should be getting A's, but occasionally a B is okay. But this house, we don't allow C's. And my kids just rose those expectations. Didn't want to stress them out by saying I want straight A's. But, one of them got out of UC San Diego, that's where I went. UC Santa Barbara, the other Cal State Bakersfield, and the other one's still working on his degree. But, there's an expectation. This is what we're going to do. And you see that with the community expectations. Perfect example is when I coached track and field and cross country at Bakersfield High. The cross country team, the expectation is great grades and doing well. Where in the track, it wasn't necessarily the case, just because that culture didn't exist. So on cross country road trips, kids are talking about SATs, AP classes, all kinds of academic kind of things. And the track team, and sometimes it'd be some of the same kids, that wouldn't be the conversation. I remember one time taking my distance guys to a meet with some of the other athletes, and they were just shocked at the conversation and what the kids were talking about, college and classes and schoolwork and activities like that. So expectations not only on the playing field, but in the classroom and in business. Well, I've done over 1,500 DoorDash deliveries, and I haven't tripped or fell, but I did today. At least it was in a crappy neighborhood that didn't have any ring cameras, so they didn't get me on it, but I did a nice somersault with their Denny's Grand Slams. So I did a nice hard slam on the ground, but popped right up. I think, thankfully, because all my cross training, I didn't fall like George Burns. Good times. I was talking about community expectations, and of course, you may be in a community that has fairly low expectations, like I have here in Bakersfield. Of course, I think, with the Bakersfield Distance Project that I started in 2009, and other people, of course, trying to raise the bar. My good friend Adam Setzer, he did it with cross country, and he ended up winning a state title with Ridgeview High a couple years ago. It's the first time any Bakersfield team had ever won a state title in cross country, and the dang thing's been going on since 1987. So it's possible to build a community, but if you don't have a community, the nice thing is now with the internet and whatnot, you can definitely find a community and have them help and support you and learn from. And you see that often now with the, elite runners all around the country and all around the world, because they can watch videos like this or others, read about it, and go on Let's Run forums and find out what the best practices are to train for your particular sport. Like I said, you can just always Google it. And, that's kind of what I've always done throughout my running and athletic career. I was a skateboarder since 1973 and skated until my 40s, and then I kind of gave it up a few years ago, just because when I started doing ultras, I couldn't see doing all this training and then risking getting injured. But, starting in 73, and that was before videos and all that. But what we do is we get a magazine, and we'd see a magazine, and we'd see somebody doing a trick and go, oh, okay, we can do that. And then urethane wheels came out, and we'd see the Dogtown guys riding in a pool. So we'd get we'd find a pool and try that. And then you'd see next magazine, a guy riding over the light. And then, doing a backside turn, a front side turn, grinds. And, he just looked at photos and said, hey, it can be done. Let's go do it. And that's the same thing that happened with Roger Bannister. When he finally broke the 4-minute mile, a whole bunch of people started doing it. And so it's that's the whole point is, have some expectations, reasonable expectations, and then set your mind to doing it. Since I train alone most of the time, I have kind of a system going on where when I head out and warming up, I listen to podcasts, and then when I'm actually doing the meat of the workout, I listen to music, and usually a lot of trance music. Above and Beyond is one of my favorites, and Paul Oakenfold. Can't really run or walk to rock and roll. That 4/4 beat's just kind of difficult. So like this morning, did a 20-minute walk, listened to podcasts, and then once I was doing the 4 times 2 minutes hard, I was listening to Above and Beyond. In today's podcast, I was listening to Adam Kroll and Dr. Drew. And one of the things they were talking about that I really took to heart was Dr. Drew, they're talking about COVID and all the things that are going on with it. But he said one thing that I really liked is, the doctor's creed isn't to do something, it's to do no harm. Because generally whenever you do something, that's when harm comes about. And he was talking in the medical field, and just throwing things up against the wall. It's not necessarily the best idea with any kind of thing. And that's kind of all life. It's kind of like do no harm. So, first, use the scientific method, research it, and figure out what you need to do. So do no harm. Don't just do something, because that's just never going to be a solution to any kind of problem. And as Trayson said, long ago, I remember hearing her say that, one of the things she loves about endurance sports is it's all about problem solving. But, figure out a solution. Don't just keep doing the same thing over and over, or just doing something that doesn't make any sense, because I see that quite a bit. And so, as always, wanted to do a little bit of news today. Not a whole lot going on, obviously. One of the things I saw Outside Magazine was talking about why your friend's gym routine may not work for you. And basically the big takeaway is you can't learn anything from the training of your betters. It's not that you can't learn from your betters. It's that some lessons are more transferable than others. The number of sets, the amount of rest, how fast they're lifting, lowering the bar. What someone say they took last night, probably not a big deal, though the slight differences might, be a bit. It says to max out your personal potential, whatever happens to be, you'll need to do the same. Kind of pay attention to them. 3 athletes tested early, and so it's basically saying, you just need to do a training program like I was just talking about. Speaking of the marathon project, we had a great race last week. It looks like our COVID protocols worked. They said that 3 athletes tested positive earlier in the week and had to scratch, didn't travel as a result. So the protocols worked. 1 athlete had an issue post-race, non-COVID symptoms related, and had to go to the ER. They tested for COVID while they were there, and the athlete was positive.
So they warned all the other runners, but it sounds like everything's going to be doing okay. I'll leave this podcast, and all of you guys have a good Christmas tomorrow. Greg McMillan, of course, tweeted, "Fitness builds like compounding interest. A little frequently pays bigger dividends than a lot infrequently. Thus, why avoiding injury is key." And hey, that's my whole thing. Stay healthy, be boring, not epic.